Hello, my name is Brett Heasman. I'm a researcher in the Department of Psychological and Behavioural Science at the London School of Economics. Today I'm going to talk about a new study called Perspective-Taking is Two-Sided: Misunderstandings Between People with Asperger Syndrome and Their Family Members. In this study, myself and Dr. Alex Gillespie investigated misunderstandings in 22 relationships involving autistic adults and their family members. Misunderstandings are social in nature, always having two sides. However, the causes of misunderstanding have traditionally focused on the individual with autism and not their social relation. So we developed a two-way method for analysing misunderstandings in real social relationships. Within social relationships, there are a number of perspectives. For example, we typically have direct perspectives on self, direct perspectives on others, and something called meta-perspectives, which is how we think other people think about us. For the purposes of understanding interpersonal relationships, these three dimensions tell us a lot about how misunderstandings emerge. For example, the difference between how someone views themselves compared with how they are seen by others tells you about levels of disagreement. The difference between how one person sees themselves and how they think they are seen by another person tells you about levels of perceived misunderstanding. And the difference between how one person thinks they are seen by someone else compared with how they are actually seen by someone else tells you about levels of actual misunderstanding. Of key interest to our study is how participants build and use meta-perspectives, which are important because they enable us to anticipate and resolve misunderstandings efficiently. When we socially perspective take, we have to serially adjust from our own perspective to build an approximation of someone else's viewpoint based on information available to us. That's why good communication is integral to good perspective taking in relationships. It allows us to bridge gaps in mutual understanding so that perspectives are as closely aligned as possible. What is unique about relationships involving autistic adults and their family members is that both parties belong to different life worlds, with different norms and expectations for what is good communication. This can make perspective taking difficult for both parties. In our study, we had two important findings that help to explain why misunderstandings persist. First, autistic adults were able to predict that they would receive negative ratings from their family members, despite themselves disagreeing with this view, although they were less likely to articulate why. Second, such perspective-taking ability was often overlooked by family members, who tended to overestimate the extent to which relatives with Asperger's were anchored in their own perspective. Many family members explained such ratings via representations of autism being associated with an extreme egocentric worldview. These two findings highlight how representations of autism are used to fill in gaps in interpersonal understanding. But using these representations can also shape interpersonal dynamics. Family members may be prevented from probing further about the causes of misunderstandings because they interpret information in a way that is partial to their existing beliefs about how autism is represented. Autistic adults, on the other hand, experience great frustration because they have better self-other awareness than the cultural representation of autism gives them credit for. We therefore need to pay close attention to the way autism is represented in culture because of these interpersonal effects. Although more research needs to be conducted to examine how society limits or extends possibilities for social interaction for autistic people, this study at least highlights that misunderstandings can be two-sided, and that the perspectives of autistic people have social validity despite their diagnosis.